Okay, so let's go to another couple of examples. Ready? The Human Toxome Project, HTP, never heard of it, is working to understand the scope of industrial pollution in the human body. Industrial chemicals may enter the body through pollution or as ingredients in consumer products. I'm not making light of this. This is obviously very important, but blah, blah, blah in terms of actually doing a T-score. So far, I don't care about anything they've said. I also don't care that in October of 2008, the scientists at HTP tested cord blood samples. Now I start caring. For 20 newborn infants. That's real important. First off, the fact that it's only 20 infants makes me think T-scores, and 20 is a very important number. The cord blood in the in utero newborn group was tested for 430 industrial compounds, pollutants, and other chemicals, including chemicals linked to brain and nervous system toxicity, immune system toxicity, and reproductive toxicity, and fertility problems. There are health concerns about the effects of some of these chemicals on the brain and nervous system. The table shows how many of the targeted chemicals were found in each infant's blood cord. And again, I'm not making light of this. This is a very important thing, and the environment's really important to me. But in terms of answering a math question, it's really not important until I get to this table. This table is extremely important. And as soon as I do it, and I know that I'm looking to find the T-scores, then I have to take this table and I have to put it into list one of the calculators, which says, or I should say, which answers this question: what do you have to do before finding the T-score? You need to put them in L1 in the calculator. So why don't you do that from here? Input this data for L1 and go all the way until you find the T-score confidence interval. Okay? And in this particular problem, we want a confidence interval level of 90. Okay? A confidence interval level of 90. Go ahead. Okay, so before we start, you may be asking yourself, well, how come I don't have to find the mean? How come I don't have to find standard deviations or SE or anything else? Well, the reason for that is because when you put the information into L1 in the calculator, it finds all that information for you. So since the calculator already calculates it, they don't ask you to put that information back in again. In other words, it eliminates some redundancy. Now, to find it for the 90th percentile, we go to stat and then we go over to the tests. Okay, when we go over to tests, we choose the 8th one down, which is the T interval, and we press enter. Or you could just press 8, get you there too. So then you're going to see the data blinking, and if you hit enter, you go down to the list, and the list that's now blinking should be L1, that data you just entered. Hit enter, you look at the frequency, it should say 1. If it doesn't say 1, enter a 1, hit enter. And then arrow down to where it says the C level, which is short for the confidence level. And we're looking for a 90th percent confidence level. So enter 0.90 and then hit enter again. And the 90th percent confidence interval is 117.41 to 137.49. Okay? So again, process is the same all the time, and you don't need to worry about finding the means or the standard deviation, because when you input the data, the calculator actually does that for you. That's why you can skip that whole step, and you don't get something that looks akin to an inverse norm button to hit. Okay, let's try the next one. All right, so read it over, look at the table. Obviously, the table is real important. And this one wants a 98% confidence interval. Go ahead. Okay, so assuming you're done with all of your work, what do you have to do before finding any T-score? Got to clear out the L1 and put this data into L1. So I assume that you went to stat edit, then you hit enter and it goes to L1, and that you cleared it out by going above the heading bar, hit clear enter, go down below the heading bar and start putting all of this data in. So there's going to be a total of 15 pieces of data. Once you do that, calculator takes over from there. What do you do in your calculator? First, you create list 1 from stat edit. Then you go to stat over to test down to 8, which is your T interval. Then you go, when you hit enter there, it'll be blinking on data. You go down to list 1, hit enter. Then you change the C level, which is in this case the confidence level, to 0.98 because it wants a 98% confidence level. And it tells you 3.0795 and 9.1872. To me, this is even easier than the previous lesson. You just follow it along step by step by step, okay? All right, so let's go now to the next question. All right, the owner of a chain, I actually, let's not, you see how at the top it says hypothesis test? Don't pay any attention to that. I changed what we're looking to do in this question. The owner of a chain of mini markets wants to compare the sales performance of 2 of her stores, Store 1 and Store 2. Creative names there, huh? Sales can vary considerably depending on the day of the week and the season of the year. So she decides to eliminate such effects by making sure to record each store's sales on the same sample of days. After choosing a random sample of 8 days, she records the sales in dollars for each store on these days as shown in Table 1. And all I want you to do is to find the T-scores for Store 1 and for Store 2. Okay? So let's do Store 1. You do it beginning to end. And then I will give you that answer. And then you'll do Store 2, and I'll give you that answer. Stop and start, of course. Okay. So for the first store, Store 1, we have to create the list in L1. So we go into L1, we clear it out by putting the cursor above the heading bar, hit clear, enter, go down below and enter the data 798, 287, 726, and so on. Once we're done doing that, next up, we hit stat again. This time we go over to tests, and we want to go down to the 8th option, which is the T interval. There, the data will be blinking. Arrow down to list L1, hit enter. And that L1 list is going to tell them more than just the scores. They're going to figure out the mean. They're going to figure out the standard deviation. They're going to figure out what N is. All of that information is contained in the list. Okay, now we got to change the confidence level to 0.98. Make sure it says 0.98 because that's what we're looking for here. And it kicks out the answer, 407.23 to 759.02. So you'll notice that the calculator is doing virtually all the work. You just need to know how to guide the buttons on the calculator, okay? You don't need to do any of the actual calculations. In case that gave you a hard time, let's have you do Store 2 now, again with stop and start. Go ahead. Okay. So for Store 2, we're going to do the same exact procedure. Create a list in L1, which means clearing out the old list, get above the heading bar, clear, enter, and then come down and put these values in, 776, 63, 390, 405, 303, and so on. Now, hit the stat button again and go over to where it says tests, down to the 8th option, which is T interval. Hit enter. When you do that, you'll see your data is blinking and it's saying, what data do you want me to figure this out from? And underneath data, it should say L1. So you go down to L1, hit enter. Then you look and it says C level. In this case, you want that C level to be 0.98, which in this particular one is the same as the previous one. So we can leave it alone. And then the last is it'll kick back the answer to you and it'll say from 239.79 to 590.21. So that, folks, is how you calculate T-scores. I think it's pretty straightforward compared to the previous lesson, step by step by step. And it's related enough to the previous lesson that the skills you acquired there, I think, really help with this particular one, okay? I eventually will add a couple of a video with a couple of review questions, but right now I cannot do that because I still need to see the results of your test to know what questions I should go over. Have an awesome one. Take care.